Hello and welcome back to the Shed Geek Podcast. Here's a message from our 2025 studio sponsor. Let's be real. Running a shed business today isn't just about building great sheds. The industry is changing fast. We're all feeling the squeeze, competing for fewer buyers while expectations keep climbing. And yet, I hear from many of you that you are still juggling spreadsheets, clunky software, or disconnected systems. You're spending more time managing chaos than actually growing your business. That's why I want to talk to you about our studio sponsor, ShedPro. If you're not already using them, I really think you should check them out. ShedPro combines your 3D configurator, point of sale, RTO contracts, inventory, deliveries, and dealer tools all in one platform. They even integrate cleanly into our Shed Geek marketing solutions. From website lead to final delivery, you can quote, contract, collect payment, and schedule delivery in one clean workflow. No more double entries, no more back and forth chaos. Quoting is faster, orders are cleaner. And instead of chasing down paperwork, you're actually running your business. And if you mention Shed Geek, you'll get 25% off all setup fees. Check it out at shedpro.co/ShedGeek. Thank you, ShedPro, for being our studio sponsor, and honestly, for building something that helps the industry.
Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek Podcast. And I have David here with me today. And David, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to let you open up by telling us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do. How about that?
Thanks, Shannon, and thank you so much for having me here today. So I'm Coach David J. Greer. I'm a 40-plus year entrepreneur, and for roughly the last decade, I've been an entrepreneurial coach and facilitator. I want all your listeners to know that if there's something in this conversation today that Shannon and I are going to have that resonates for you and you'd like some help, either in your business, or we'll probably talk a little bit about my recovery from alcoholism. I offer free 1 hour of coaching to anyone that is open to it. Visit my website. If you just Google my name and coach, David Greer, coach, it'll take you to my website, and the top left corner has my phone number, my email address. Please just reach out, and I'm here to help. And I promise you, after an hour together, you'll have at least one idea to get you unstuck. So I just wanted to put that out there to start.
Excellent. No, it's great. And I love that we started out with that, because I can't, we just don't take advantage of those sometimes enough, those opportunities. As a free hour with a 40-plus year entrepreneurial coach at your disposal, why not take that free hour? So my encouragement to you is give them a call. You never know what happens until you do that discovery and start building that relationship. So 40-plus years in coaching, man, you learned a thing or two, or what, David?
Maybe.
Okay.
I wrote a book.
Nice.
It's called Wind in Your Sails. Vital Strategies that Accelerate Your Entrepreneurial Growth. And I interviewed over 45 other entrepreneurs and sales and marketing leaders for that book. And it's kind of a quarter theory book about 10 areas, I think, of every business, and then 3/4 practical ideas that you can actually implement. And as part of that interview process, every chapter ends with a case study of an entrepreneurial friend of mine. So you get at the point I wrote it, I had about 35 years of experience, but you also get all these 10 other entrepreneurs. You get all of their experience. They're a third of the content of the book. And why we got together and wrote this book is there's a lot of potholes in building a business. And if you want, you can drive into all the potholes that we drove into. That's totally your choice. But if you'd like to avoid the potholes that we found, which are some of the more common ones, and go drive into your own potholes, you might want to check out the book. And, the idea is the book is, if you're stuck on something, you look in the index. If you have a print version, that old-fashioned kind of thing, or, in the Kindle version, you just do a search and, you read the appropriate chapter for maybe 3, 4, 5 pages. And you'll again have one idea for like that you can apply to the current situation you're stuck in, from me or from one of the entrepreneurial friends whose stories that I share. So we really wanted it a book to be that had practical ideas that can move your business forward today.
Well, it's excellent because you're part of our audience and a major part of our audience. They're all entrepreneurs. They all have that spirit about them. They started a business, whether that was starting a manufacturing facility, for sheds or pole barns or furniture or wherever, all the other things, or they've somehow raised up in it, second generation, third generation, and like some folks said, well, I never really sought to be in business. Like I just built sheds for a living, and then all of a sudden there's all these other business concepts that go along with it, and that's maybe not what they're good at or what they're familiar with or what they're used to. So a coach or someone to help guide them along the way, and including myself, is extremely necessary.
I want to share one little story. So when I was 22, I joined a young software startup as the first employee after the founders. And I stayed 20 years and built it into a global powerhouse. So for at least the first 15 plus years, if you asked me what I did, I said computer programmer. But literally, I'd be going to a trade show in England to give a presentation, and on the customs form, it's like occupation, computer programmer. And then finally, I brought some outside strategy and marketing people in, and they said, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a computer programmer." And then they'd hold up this mirror back to me, and it said entrepreneur. And I said, "No, no, no, you don't get. I'm a computer programmer." And then they'd hold up this mirror, entrepreneur. And I'd probably been an entrepreneur from age 23, but I didn't think of myself that way. So when you share about people that are in the shed business who came to it by family, or they're just good with the tools and they started building them, it's like, when did they become an entrepreneur? Well, you just became one along the way. But it actually helps if you think more like an entrepreneur if you want to build your business, which it turned out Bob and I, my former partner, had done quite a bit of thinking, but yeah, at our heart we're still computer programmers. So I can really relate to that.
I can relate too because I'm writing this down. We used to have a program whenever I worked more in the corporate world. It was a program called Own It, and the whole idea behind this Own It program was that you treated your business as though you were the owner.
Hmm.
Instead of like if it were retail, if someone says, could you give me directions to the restroom, without trying to feel overpowering or overbearing, you'd be like, yeah, just right this way, I'll show you. Because the owner might take an extra special interest in just
Hmm.
like, it's down there, right? It's down that way, take a right. Like I'm working, I'm busy, I'm in the moment, I'm working in my job, so I don't really have time to think. Like, and when you say think like an entrepreneur, um, well, you're forced to do that whenever you start a business, aren't you? Because you're going to have all of these issues come up. Um, One of my favorite things is like whenever people say, I want to expand, like we get this a lot, right? And like our marketing, I want to expand, I want to double. And I'm like, ooh, do you really want to double? Because like there's going to be a whole new set of problems, and without addressing these things. So that's why we're having you on the show today. Kind of explain these things to us, maybe some of these processes, what it looks like for a high performing company versus a company that's just getting by. I open the floor to you. Share some thoughts. I'm curious.
Yes. So, um, so we built Robel, the software company I joined when I was still at university. I stayed 20 years. Bob and I built it the way most entrepreneurs build it, which is kind of let's make it 5% better than the year before. And it was hugely successful. Like, I don't want to, I don't not, right? Like, it's a perfectly valid way to plan your business. But after taking a break, after I ended up exiting that business, Bob and I had a major disagreement. We only had one in 20 years, but it ended in divorce, and he bought me out. Um, my wife and I commissioned a sailboat in the south of France, and we took our kids, homeschooled them for 2 years while sailing more than 5,000 nautical miles in the Mediterranean. I came back, was an angel investor, and all my technology entrepreneur friends kept talking about this one-page strategic plan. And I really recommend people take a look at that. It's from a guy, Vern Harnish, and his book is Scaling Up. And you can get the template for the plan. You can buy the book.
Hey, I'm Clark Paquette, one of the founders of Calculate Business Services. If you're in the portable storage building industry, you already know how much is going on behind the scenes. Managing lots, tracking sales, keeping up with cash flow, and staying on top of your books. It's a lot. That's where we come in. At Calculate, we specialize in helping businesses like yours with bookkeeping, accounting, tax prep, business support, and even fractional C-level services, like having a part-time CFO or COO on your team without the full-time price tag. We know this industry, and we understand its unique challenges. Our team helps you stay organized, make smarter decisions, and keep your business running smoothly so you can focus on building and selling. Whether you're just starting out or scaling fast, we've got the tools, the team, and the experience to help you grow. And to get the conversation started, we're offering a free 30-minute consultation. No pressure, just real help. Visit calculatellc.com and click Contact Us to schedule your session today. Let's grow your business together.
But I took one of my young angel invested CEOs to a Vern Harnish event because I didn't know anything at the time about this one-page plan. And I just had so many people tell me how wonderful it was. And he kind of blew my mind in the morning when he said the way his process works is, where do you want to be? Pick its future point 3 to 5 years out. So like December 31st, like 2027, that'd be 3 years out. Well, 2.5, but let's call it 3. And like, where do you want to be then? And what markets do you want to be in? Especially what markets do you want to be in? What product lines? And like, what are the key capabilities you need to build between now and then? Like maybe you need to build a whole new product line, or maybe you need to move into a whole new market. Or maybe you're very satisfied with 5% of your growth. And so that's your future point, is you only have 2 more employees and your revenue is growing 5% a year over those 3 years. So that gets you to whatever that number is. Like, there's no wrong answer to that, but it's starting with a process that looks 3 years out and writing down like the 4 or 5, like some key numbers, like number of customers, revenue, profit level, margin level, like that you want to aim for in that time, which may be what you are doing today. Like, again, or or maybe incrementally better, maybe the same margin. And then like, what are like, sometimes if you want to double in that time, which is what you just said, you had a person come to you and say, well, you probably need to do at least 1 or 2 key hires who are going to help you to manage to that level. So in your 3-year plan, like one of the key capabilities or thrusts you need to do is to find like this talent and attract them and be able to pay them. And then you work backwards from that to what are the crystal clear 4 or 5 things that we need to do for the year. My experience is either entrepreneurs don't write anything down, and it's very hard to be held accountable if you don't write anything down. Also, coach's hint: if you write down your goals, it's a 50% increase your probability of achieving them, even if you never look at them again, and even if you don't show them to anyone. So what are your 4 or 5 goals for the year that are going to get you to that place you want to go to 3 or 5 years from now? And then the core of kind of the Vern Harnish scaling up process is to do quarterly planning. And a quarter is 13 weeks, and it's enough to get a lot done, and short enough that if you're totally in the, like, blow it completely, or some new brutal fact shows up, you can course adjust and you won't like crash the business. And so it's this: meet once a year, figure out your new 3 to 5 year goal, figure out your 1 year 4 to 5 goals, and then plan for the quarter and each quarter. And I really recommend you get offsite with your senior team to do that planning. I think it goes better if you get a facilitator to do it. And I have a video on my YouTube channel that talks about why. You can do it yourself. And I've done it myself. I've done it both ways. So I have a video that talks about pros and cons of that. And anyways, because this doubling of business has a lot of consequences, which if you don't think through the
Yeah.
consequences of that, which I think is what you were alluding to, um, then, like, okay, you do a great marketing campaign, you've doubled it. Well, can you supply that? Can you supply twice as many sheds in like next year? Let's say the
Right.
marketing plan works brilliantly. Like, do you have the capabilities to deliver that many? Because your marketing plan and your operational plan have to march ahead together at this. I mean, marketing usually leads it, right? Because it takes time and takes time to generate leads. But at the end of the day, if it's too close, like if it gets too far ahead and you haven't brought operations up to where the marketing plan is, you're going to crash and burn. Like you're going to have huge demand and just massively disappointed customers because they want your marketing plan worked. They want it. They are coming. They want it, and you can't deliver. So you also need that backing of the operational plan that makes sense in that doubling marketing plan.
It's almost as though we become comfortable with that too, as business owners, if we're not careful. We get comfortable with, well, there's plenty of leads coming in, so I'm good for now,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm good for now. But if you're like, whatever you're doing, with the least amount of success with, the customer you lost, that's just as important as the customers you've gained. I mean, you're as strong as your weakest link, right? So like,
Mm-hmm.
your reputation starts to suffer. And I wrote this down, David, because I've gotten in a habit of trying to listen to you and write down some thoughts without breaking my concentration here. I wrote down, something that was told to me one time before. There's no greater burden than a good opportunity. As a good opportunity comes and success starts to happen, all of a sudden you're in this tailspin, because like the generation I grew up in, our parents was always like, you better get something to fall back on, right? You better have
Yeah,
something to
right.
fall back on. And it's like, but nobody ever said, you better plan for the success you're about to have. It was always like, be prepared for failure, don't be prepared for success. And I think that's something that we all do. If you are a mechanic, seems like your car always needs worked on. If you're a carpenter, there's always that work that needs to be done around the house. And guess what? If you're in marketing or anything else, if you're in manufacturing, the things that don't get done are us taking a step back and being able to work on our business because we're so concentrated on
Absolutely.
working in our business.
Correct. And when you're on the hamster wheel, when you're in the next fire, like I'm not saying it's easy. Like strategically to step back from the business and look at it is a really hard thing to do. Like we get on the hamster wheel and we get so afraid that if we don't pedal to the max to burnout, that, like if we stepped off the hamster wheel and actually slowed down for a bit, we just think the business will fail. And that is almost like probably 99% of the time that is untrue, but it doesn't feel like it. And I want to circle back with the interesting thing you brought up in that happens in some of my coaching and with me as well, which is, we have this fear of failure, but I think for a lot of us, we actually have a bigger fear of success. And either from that story, like you're talking about, like a parental story, of you have to always have the fallback, or like one of my biggest fears is, who do you think you are? Like who do you think you are to be a multimillionaire? Who do you think, to be too big for your britches, to like, so that actually sabotages some of our plans for our success. And again, there's ways to work through it, but I challenge some of your listeners to like wonder about that. Like, is there a part of you that's actually afraid of the success that you want? Because at the end of the day, if that fear is present consciously or unconsciously, I mean, it can really hold you back. And it's better to flush it out and figure it out and what it means to you. And again, that fear, like what you're fearful of succeeding, will be different for each of us. Like the underlying belief story system that creates that. I mean, that's part of a coach. I help people go explore that and figure that out. Or I help them say, I wonder if you're still back in your fear of success. Could that be what's showing up here in this moment?
Well, that success brings, as you alluded to earlier, a whole host of new problems. And without that 3 to 5 year target that you're talking about, how do you measure that success, or how do you measure that the effectiveness of your plan? Because essentially, what you're doing is just kind of throwing caution to the wind and saying, "Let's wing it."
Right.
And at the end of the year, you're saying, "Did we make money?" I mean, it feels like we made money, but did we make money? Did we do well? Did I grow? Am I there's so many questions that accompany it. Did I grow? Do I want to grow more? What's it going to take to go to this next level? Oh no, I realize all of a sudden I'm going to have to be this employer. I'm going to have to hire 3, 4, 5 people to take this. And I never set out to do that. I just set out to be an
Hmm.
entrepreneur and be successful. And it's like, well, now you are. So, there's a you talk a lot about culture, I know. And like one thing that we like to talk about culture too. And there's this thought, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on it, because it's kind of made its circle around our industry for quite some time. And that is, if you're not growing, you're dying. If your business isn't growing, then it's dying. What are your thoughts on that? What are your official coaching perspectives on that?
I want to go back to that word success,
Okay.
because I think all too often that statement you just made, if you're not growing, you're dying. So by default, growth is success.
Mm.
Okay.
Digital Shed Builder is an online shed configurator that strives to provide incredible visual quality, fantastic customer service, and an amazingly low price point, making it a perfect fit for any shed dealer looking to increase their online sales. Digital Shed Builder is simple to use, taking less than 5 minutes to integrate on your site. The Get a Quote feature streamlines your sales process, showing you exactly what your potential customers need. They offer a highly customizable experience that accurately represents your brand and unique shed offerings, working with you directly to set up everything you need in a configurator. With no extra startup cost, no lengthy contracts or commitments, and no hidden fees, Digital Shed Builder has been created with quality, simplicity, and affordability in mind.
And I challenge listeners and entrepreneurs to figure out what success means for them, and not the story. Like, for example, governments love more employment, right? So media loves to report that, unemployment's going down and all these jobs are being created by all these wonderful entrepreneurs. And so it's really easy to say, oh, I'm generating more revenue, I'm hiring more people, I'm creating more jobs, I am successful. Well, that's someone else's definition of success. And you said that about your industry. Like, there's this story in the industry: if you're not growing, you're a failure. And I mean, maybe the dynamics of your industry, that is a true statement. I know nothing about the shed industry, so I can't speculate. Although I would say off the top, it's quite unbelievable, right? Like, I don't know, let's say you're a 2 million a year business and you're making, I don't know what your margins are in your business, but you're making $250,000, 300,000 a year. Plus you're taking 100,000 a year salary. And like, if you've got a market you're happy with and you don't have 10 competitors trying to beat you to the door, and you're happy with that size of business and making that kind of money, and the runway for the next 5 years looks pretty good for that, go for it. Like, you don't need to grow. I mean, you need to be cautious if some competitors are going to come and take away a lot of your market share. And then it's like, so that's part of making sure that strategic thinking and that marketing thinking. But as long as that's there, and you've got key people and you've got the finances to keep building, to doing what you're doing today, go for it. I mean, you're the entrepreneur, you're in charge. It is your choice. I don't think you should buy into the government media. You have to make jobs to be a successful entrepreneur, because that's what we say. I don't think you should buy into the shed industry story that it's growth or failure. It's just a story. And, you decide. And then the other thing, I work with entrepreneurs, they grow the top line revenue. Who cares? Like, you start a business to make money. Like, how are you going to double your profits? I'm way more interested in those plans.
The
Like,
hardest, the hard,
how could you build efficiencies in your business? How could you hire Shannon and be twice as effective in your marketing plans, and spend half as much and get twice as many leads, so that like you are making more money. I I work a lot with entrepreneurs to make more money, because at the end of the day, like, I think that's why we should start businesses. We start businesses for many reasons, but at the end of the day, go make money.
well, it has to
Like,
make money. I mean, even
but
even
go make lots. Like, again, it's like fear of six. Like, people, go make 1 million a year. Like, go for it. I'm like, I really encourage people, go make lots of money. Don't just focus on like generating tons of revenue. Like, just go make lots of money and be just proud of it.
Well, the more
Sorry.
that you no, you're fine. The more that you make, the more you can be giving, right? So, like, if giving is a
Yes.
cause, for instance, and maybe you possess the talents that have been given the talents, to be able to do that, to learn how to earn money, and like then your heart is naturally to be that of a giver and not a taker. So, like, like naturally you're like, well, the more I make, the more I can serve, the more I can
Totally.
minister, or whatever it is that your passion is for why you started business. So if you say, well, my job's not to, it's like sales. I have people all the time say, well, my job's not to pressure the customer. And I'm like, no one's job's to pressure the customer, right? Whenever they come in to buy a shed, but everyone's goal is to sell them a shed. And it's not my goal. My goal is to help them. Well, then selling a shed will help them because that's
Right.
probably why they're there. So there's nothing wrong with saying, I have the product, I have the solution, I have the fix to what you need. And like, I want to make sure that you know that I mean, church it works in a very similar way, but it still has to pay the bills. You still have a light bill, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's still got to make money. And like, that's the confusing side, is like understanding your why, right?
Yeah.
Understanding, why do I do what I do at the end of the day. And I think that's a challenge for a lot of people. And like, we have a couple of strong lines that we use, David, not to just be self promotional this whole time. We have a couple of lines we use in our marketing, where it's strong language. Like, our job is to make you money. Our job is to make you more money than you're spending with us. And if your marketing agency isn't doing that, that's what we want you to brag about if you're working with us by any means. It's like, hey, they made me more than they spent, because that's our value proposition. We're attempting to make you more by spending
Yes.
with us, the professionals, to help accomplish this. So, like, if we're not doing that, we're fired. Like, we got to kill what we eat, right?
Yep.
Like, we're we
So help
understand
me
that.
out. So if I'm a homeowner, so in, say, the homeowner section of the market, like,
Okay.
what's the biggest pain point for a homeowner as to, like, the top three or four why they want a shed?
Oh, great question. So, like, for many years, it seems as though sheds have been primarily for storage purposes, for excess.
Hmm. Hmm.
What's interesting is that now you're starting to see, like, especially COVID ushered in a lot of this, like, home offices,
Okay.
additional housing, maybe for like an in-law suite or something along those lines, right? So now all of a sudden there's this, we've went from building a box, right? Building a little box
Hmm.
to store your stuff in, to building a little box that's like another version of a home. So the tiny home movement and all of that
Right.
stuff. And, like, we serve, to me, we serve both markets. We serve both the minimalist who wants to go smaller and have a smaller home, and have less, excess things. Then we also serve the traditional American family who's like, all this stuff's not going to fit in the house. We need
I got too much.
to
Yeah. Right.
we gotta put it out here. And then, that's kind of morphed into other areas like gazebos and pergolas and, play sets and post frame and all these different things. But generally speaking, you're attempting to solve the problem of storage. And the key point really here is backyard storage, like
Right.
storage that's convenient right there. Like, these things get delivered, on a truck, a trailer, a little couple different machines out there that move them right into place into your yard, level them up really nice. And now you have the convenience of what would be a storage unit down at corner of, X and Y Avenue, 15 miles away. I can go right
Mhm.
out in the safety of my backyard. Well, now these
And
people are turning them into yoga studios and music studios, and they're becoming so much more just a place to keep your lawnmower or your Christmas tree.
so I wanted to circle back to your sales comment. So about helping people. So my belief in marketing and sales is it's all about the pain in the marketplace and how your pain pill solves their pain. And the bigger their pain and the better your pain pill, the more value. So to me, as if I were a salesperson without knowing your industry very well, I would do the discovery piece with every lead to like go one or two layers asking why do you want to shed? Okay, and then they'll give you the surface answer, and then you ask, well, why is that important to you? And by the third time you ask why, you're probably at the root, like what really is bothering them, and then you just need to show them how working with you like will put them out of that pain. And so I think you can still be of service, and like it's not a pushy like I'm just on quota and I'm just trying to earn commission. um, and you can be of service and still generate a heck of a lot of sales, by really understanding deeply like the pain that the individual lead is experiencing for whatever it is, because they need the home office, because they do have a storage thing, as you say, that's 15 miles away, and they just got really tired of driving back and forth, and they still have some legitimate need for the stuff that's in there. Um,
Right. Yeah.
so, so when I coach entrepreneurs, I help them at a high level, like to better understand that, and then help them to coach their salespeople to better understand and show up in that way. Pain pill, pain pill. Because if you can really help the client understand the pain they're in, and then really show how your solution just puts them out of the pain, I think it just creates massive value.
And the value, is so valuable. What is that? Somebody was telling me about the Purdue study or whatever the other day, where if value exceeds price by even 1%, you have a
Mhm.
buyer, right? So
Yeah.
it's always about value. It's always about what value you're able to bring in. In this case, like you said, a solution. On that note, I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to be bold, right? I'm going to ask this question: why should business owners hire a coach? What is the value proposition there from your perspective? I see tremendous value in it, and I could probably go on and on and on. But I'm curious. This is what you do for a living. You got 40 years of experience in this.
Yeah.
Like, I would be remiss not to ask this question. Like, why should business people hire a coach?
The shed business has always been grown on tradition, but this year we're building the future and changing the game. Introducing the technology you didn't know you needed until now. Join us at the My Shed booth at the Shed Builder Expo and experience the innovation set to transform how shed businesses sell, deliver, and grow. Are you ready for what's next? Stop by My Shed. See the future in action.
Few reasons. One is, so people oftentimes come to me because they're in crisis, or like things have gone sideways or really bad. And I'm happy to be hired on that basis. Um, a lot of people are stuck. So they get to that $1 million plateau or $4 or $5 million plateau, and they still want to grow the business. They've been working at it for 3, 4, 5 years. It's not growing. So it's another kind of stuckness. And so, they'll hire a coach like me to help figure out like why. And there's no like universal why. It's specific to the entrepreneur, their situation, what the
Mm-hmm.
business they're trying to build. And I guess the other piece is, as entrepreneurs, we are incredibly driven, and it's super, super hard for us to ask for help.
Mm.
And
No
but at
truer
some point,
statement has ever been made on this podcast.
at some point, it's just too hard to keep doing it alone. And
There's only
you
there's
don't
only
have to
24
hire.
hours in a day, right?
Yeah.
There's only
And
24 hours.
if you don't want to work with a coach, find a mentor. Join a
Mhm.
peer group. I'm sure,
Hmm.
like you said, you've told me, before we started how big the shed industry is. Like, I'm sure there is entrepreneur peer groups or get involved in a local group and have breakfast meetings. Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm happy for you to hire me and for us to work together if there's a fit. But there's other solutions, and really, but at its core is stop trying to do it all alone.
Mm.
Like, it's just, you can, like, but it's pushing a wet string uphill a mountain on a muddy path, and you can do it. But it's not the most pleasant experience, and it's a heck of a lot harder than it needs to be.
A lot of entrepreneurs, you've probably seen this over your 40 plus years. A lot of entrepreneurs not just have a hard time asking for help, but they're so focused on um, the idea that is at foot and accomplishing it, and then oftentimes um, they don't know how to step away and
Hmm.
allow for other people to be good because you can it consumes you because it's your baby, it's your idea. So to let
Totally.
someone else come in
Yep.
and kind of offer some advice, it feels like you're having to let go, and that feels very painful to have to let
Very
go. And
vulnerable and
yeah,
very vulnerable, right?
yeah,
I meet many, many entrepreneurs that need help. Most of them I can't help because they're not open to it,
hmm,
right? Like,
hmm,
you have to get to some point where you know um, you're at least willing to take that chance and think of things differently. Which, if you let me segue into a deeply personal story, so I ended
absolutely.
up hiring a coach because I was really unfulfilled after 3 or 4 years of angel investing. I didn't understand how unfulfilled I was till I was at an event, a learning event, and there was a coach at the back of the room, and I talked to him, and he made me more uncomfortable than I'd been in 4 or 5 years. In fact, I had tears in the corner of my eyes. And I ended up hiring him, Coach Kevin Lawrence, brilliant entrepreneurial coach. And we worked together for 9 years, but for about 18 months, we worked together and reestablished my career and got me moving and working with more people at my level, and kind of cleared all the clutter off the table till the elephant in the room was the only thing left. And he was the first human being I admitted I had a drinking problem to. And I'd been an alcoholic for over 20 years, a daily drinker for 20 years. It was my deepest, darkest secret. I was in complete denial for almost all of that time. And, I engendered enough of a trust relationship to admit it to Kevin. And we had worked together long enough that I knew once I put that out there that Kevin would never let me off the hook. I didn't know what that would look like. I didn't know what would happen, but I put it out there. And it turned out in Kevin's personal life, at his summer place, around the campfire, he had become friends with someone with decades of experience in 12-step recovery. And Kevin is a very curious guy. He talked to him, how to get in the program, how did it work for him. So when I showed up, and Kevin had no idea that I had this problem, um, he knew what to do. So, he asked me to commit to going to a 12-step meeting by that Friday. This was a Tuesday. And I had a networking event downtown that ran till 8. And I went online and looked, and lo and behold, at 8:30, there was going to be a meeting a quarter of a block off the road I'd be driving down to go home. And I went to that meeting. And about three-quarters of the way through, the chairperson asked, "Is there anyone new to the program that wants to introduce themselves?" And I waited 10 seconds. I probably waited 20 seconds. And then I finally stood up and said, "I'm David. I'm an alcoholic." I probably didn't know in that moment what I was really admitting to, but I was actually, in fact, admitting to my truth. And a month or so later, I made that my home group. And last night, I was at my home group, and I'm now almost 6,000 days sober. And two people were there last night that were there the night that I walked in, like to
Wow.
have the gift of that walking the path together of recovery. And I share that. So know, if you're listening and you are challenged by alcoholism or addiction, that there is help. There is hope. And if you've got sober or clean and you're still struggling as an entrepreneur, I get it. I know what that is like. And I also want to share it because, first of all, it took a lot for me Kevin's card sat by my phone for 3 weeks, and every time I thought about picking up the phone and calling him, the phone weighed 10,000 pounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Until 3 weeks in, Kevin called me and he said, "Hey, do you remember me from the Vern Harnish event?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I do." I didn't say I hadn't thought about much else for the last 3 weeks. And thank God Kevin reached back out. And so it's really, I want to share in that getting help. It was one, I had the courage to hire Kevin and to get help from him, even though my motivation was career-wise, and it turned out to be much bigger. And then, I got help by going to a program of recovery where we help each other. And, my belief, at least in alcoholism and addiction, is that the mind that got us to that point is not the mind that can get us out. Like, it's virtually impossible to do it on our own, because we have to change the way we think, which is what 12-step the 12 steps are a way of changing how we think, and what we believe in. And so it's just two personal examples of where I reached out for help.
Too much time has gone by for me to be able to call names like off the top of my head, but the founder of the 12-step program, which
Bill
I used
W.
to know. Yes, thank you.
Bill W.
He talks about going to, was it 365 meetings in 365 days or whatever it was. And it was just like, that it holds a special place in my heart, because if you're being balanced in life, in your approach to business, part of that includes, like, man, you're holding a lot of people's livelihood responsible because of what decisions you make. So like, if you're an entrepreneur and you hire all these people, like, the decisions you make are important. So in many ways, your life is kind of on display as the owner, as the boss, as the entrepreneur, as the leading spirit behind, the effort that you guys are putting out to run a tiny home company or start a shed company or a furniture company, whatever it is that you're doing. And I think that being well balanced in those areas and addressing those areas of difficulty, I think they're important. And we have such a big heart for addiction recovery. I think I told you I worked for 1 year in the faith-based drug and alcohol rehabilitation world, and it was one of the greatest, most excellent years of my life to be able to serve. You didn't do it for the income, you did it for the outcome,
right?
Because trust me, the income wasn't there.
Yeah.
So like, you weren't doing it because you were hoping to get rich on it. You had to go in with the mentality of like how much you wanted to help. And there's always this
and thank you for your service. Thank you for your service to all the people that you helped in the time that you were there.
They helped me as much as I ever helped them. That's the way it works out. That's the beauty of it.
It does.
I think some of those folks ministered more in my life to me. It's just like, they're just people are people, and some of them are absolutely excellent. And something like alcohol is not their identity; it's part of their identity. And the truth is, man, I've met some of the best friends who have gone through some of the hardest stuff. Matter of fact, a lot of the ones that have gone through some of the hardest stuff, they're some of the best ones to lead, because they can take you to all the places. They've been there. They've been through it. So they're very confident, and it's good to see, their confidence, because they need that, because they're attempting to live in freedom, from this.
And we're not as afraid of the darkness because we've been in the darkness.
Yeah.
We know what it's like to be helpless and hopeless.
Yeah. Hello, today we're going to take a look at IFAB's component saw system. So we're utilizing a DeWalt chop saw. We've put it on sliders, easily to adjust. We've automated it using pneumatics so that we can run all these saws together using one actuator. We can either actuate with a two-hand safety control here or a foot pedal. The two-hand safety control comes with board clamps here, so to clamp in your board so you're totally hands-free. We've got digital readout up here to find your angle as well as your length. So we have a 90-degree saw here for your super long angle cuts. We've also got a conveyor on the system to take away your cutoffs. This system is completely modular. We can add as many saws as you need. The rails can be as long as you need.
For more information, visit www.ifabllc.com.
They're some of the best helpers. That's why I love it that, for your life, that turned into you being a coach. And I'd love to just certainly know more about your story. One of the first things I want to do is mention again, an hour. Like if you guys call David, he's committing an hour of free coaching to you. So if you go on the website and do the things, find the phone numbers, fill out the lead forms, do all the stuff to get in touch with him. He's saying, hey, come on and talk with me. I've got an hour here so that we can figure out if it's a good fit. But yeah, just your story in general. I definitely want to read your book. So I don't know if it's on Amazon, Wind in Your Sails.
Every place that books are available. You can,
there you go.
can Kindle, Kobo, however you like to consume books, and Audible too.
Yeah, well, I might do Audible. We do a lot of we definitely do a lot of Audible. I listen to a lot of podcasts, listen to a lot of music, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks, David. That's just that consumes a lot of my life. So yeah, man, I believe people buy from people that they trust. So, definitely wanted to have you on here today to talk more about your product. Is there any questions you have for me? I always like to open up towards the end of the interview. We're only close to 40 minutes in or so, but sometimes it'll create some good conversation. Me and you don't know each other extremely well, right? So the audience is getting this first fruit here. You know what I mean? Like, do you have any questions about the shed industry, David? Any directions that I can point? Podcasting?
Yeah, so I'd like to dive into your experience. So from your perspective today, and for the clients that you serve, what do you think is the number one challenge that they're facing today?
Ooh, man, what a good question. Because if I have to break it down to one specific thing,
top 3 or 4, and we can decide which one is the number one.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I would say one of the hardest things is embracing change in the retail world. So we sell a product that is a retail product. If you limit this to just sheds, we sell storage solutions for people, and then that's a retail product. And to me, the way that retail is changing presents a problem, especially to a rather conservative industry. The digital world, the digital platform specifically, I think COVID helped usher a lot of that in. Amazon, we're seeing younger generations that are just choosing to shop different.
So are you saying, so I understand correctly, the change in retail is you have this younger cohort that just want to go online and buy a shed?
Yes.
Is that kind of the summary?
Or it's seemingly moving that direction from our eyes. And what we can tell is there's not going to be less, there's going to be more. And that's a little counterintuitive to a more conservative, industry, especially, I've talked with you, we have a lot of Anabaptists in our community, Amish and Mennonite. So it's not that they're agnostic to technology completely. There's a lot of, emails and things like that. But it's hard to embrace wholeheartedly the tools that are going to allow you to take market share and still maintain in this brick and mortar space. That's not to say that we should abandon one space completely by any means. It's online sales. That's a term that gets thrown around just all the time, right? And it's trying to reel all of these different terms in and educate through conversation. We like to use our platform, the podcast, to be able to help educate some thoughts. And then of course we service that industry too, right? So I don't know, maybe we're seen as biased as the way we see it, but we welcome anyone to come on and challenge that thought either.
Yeah. And you're also on the cutting edge. You're selling marketing solutions that people are using who are trying to sell. So you are seeing what is going on. So beyond changes in retail, what would be the second challenge you might identify in today's markets for the shed industry?
I think kind of going back to what we said at the beginning of the podcast, like a lot of guys got into building sheds because their dad built sheds.
Mhm.
But so it's kind of like normal to, well, let me take over the family business or let me get involved. But is there a conviction on that? Like, does the business drive them? Does it feed their
Okay.
whatever their success is? Um, I
Their
run into that a
dads,
lot.
their parents' why was to be in business for whatever reason that was important to them. And now the second generation, like they don't have the same why, or they're having trouble figuring out why they want to continue to run the business. Is that a fair
That's fair,
comment?
very fair. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think outside of that, um, it's a fragmented industry. So like we have a lot of different fragmented pieces to the industry. There's wholesalers, and then there's consignment, and there's just not a one size fits all, right? There's not a one solution software that helps, and there's a lot of guys trying to race to get to that. But to me, with the fragmentation of the industry, you were in software. Every time we work with or build a software, it seems like in the industry, it may fit 60% or 70% of the clientele,
Yeah.
but it's really hard to create something that is going to be sustainable for all the uniqueness that exists in our industry.
So my coach's challenge to you would be, is 70% good enough?
Perhaps.
Like, is it
Perhaps.
worth pursuing that 30% outlier, given how much customization and work and, how many little different pockets there would be, and just to stay hyper focused on the 70% that you cover now and just really be awesome in there? So that's my coach's question to you.
No, I think it's a great question. I think it's very fair, and I would almost challenge some of my friends who even advertise with me here on the podcast to consider that question today, because I think a lot of them have either not came to that conclusion, or some have come to that conclusion already, that like, we built this, we're going to serve the greater good, the greater majority. It's going to be really hard to customize every detail based off of all of these nuances. I think it's the same way for even a shed. Like I
Mhm.
had somebody, I had a shed manufacturer tell me the other day. I want to keep that anonymous. It's a sizable company, and people would know the name. And I was talking to one of the people in charge, and they basically said, like we kind of got away from all these other products. We did focus on the 70%, to your point here, David. Like, we didn't get into chicken coops and dog kennels and all these other things. And as a dealer and someone who's been a dealer before, you want everything you can sell. You want anything you can get your hands on, because like that's going to help increase your success from a financial perspective. So you want to sell more. But their thought was, well, it takes away the focus on selling the bread and butter, the
Right.
primary product.
So if we go back to some of the things we talked about, so like, first of all, success, like just selling more is not necessarily success, because like if it's so hard to warehouse that and it's a different market. And then separately, like one of the advantages of this one-page strategic plan is, from a marketing point of view, like getting really clear about what's in and what's out, both in like the goals you're trying to achieve and the markets you're trying to serve and the
Mhm.
product lines you're carrying.
Mhm.
Because I think in business, especially as we move down into the organization, it's very hard for people to say no. And the idea of the one-page plan is it gets crystal clear for everyone in the organization, like right down to like the shipping dock or whatever, whatever you want to call, the farthest away from onto the CEO position. Make it easy for them to say no or yes, and to know what's in and what's out. Because that's actually how we make a high-performing business, is we make it easy to say yes to the right things and then no to all the other things that don't make sense. And that's part of like grasping and getting really, really clear on these things, which is the one-page plan is a tool to help you get clear on that.
Are your shed sales down? Maybe you heard the latest news. Shed Geek and Shed Hub are now working together for the benefit of the shed industry. That's right, Shed Geek is now a managing partner for Shed Hub. One thing we want to instill immediately is your confidence in this service. The Shed Geek and Shed Hub collaborative effort means you will get the same trusted visibility from the awesome SEO efforts already created by the Shed Hub team, while resting in the fact that Shed Geek will be streamlining the seller interface, website, and overall simplicity of the service. Shed Hub has already done the work to ensure that we are the most visible shed shopping website. And here are the analytics to prove that. During the month of March 2025, Shed Hub had over 2 million impressions and over 41,000 clicks from search. This means someone is on the Shed Hub site every 60 seconds shopping for a shed. Why not have your sheds visible for just $39 per month? You can get signed up today by going to www.getshedhub.com. Once you sign up, a customer representative will reach out within 1 to 2 business days to ensure that you are onboarded and understand the program completely. Don't wait. Sell more sheds today using shedhub.com by going to www.getshedhub.com.
I'll give you a real case scenario. And again, I know I sound like I'm probably pitching marketing, I guess, constantly because it's part of our business. We do several
Well, it's
things.
what you do, and you're good at it.
I'm gonna pitch it if nothing else, and just ask the audience to forgive me if nothing else, to say that, hey, we've earned the right to have the platform, so maybe forgive me for that, right? So this is something that we've learned, and like we've had to educate a lot of our consumers over what we sell, not because they're not smart, not because they're not intelligent people. They might even be better marketers than us if they ever got into our space. It's because this isn't what they've spent their life doing or what they spend their everyday doing. They build sheds. I always tell them, if we went out and had a shed building competition, like just imagine I could put together 80% of what a shed might look like. But that doesn't mean that I think I might have lost you. Oh, there you are. You're back. Okay. Like I might be able to build 80% of what a shed looks like, but it's really going to be that extra 20% that's going to tell all the difference, right? And it may really tell a big difference if it falls apart because I didn't build the foundation right, or I didn't fix something. And so the customer is really going to know that's how important that 20% was. It's the same way with marketing. Like you can do 80% of what we do. Where we set ourselves apart in specialists, it's that 20%, right? And then it's like working with multiple people in the industry so we can pull on experiences in Utah and Florida and New York. And like we can say, hey, we can use all that we've learned in this industry to your benefit without having to like talk about the specific details of our client in Utah or New York or Miami. Right, we can use
the
their
knowledge base you're able to build because you have such a diverse customer base, and your existing and future customers get to benefit from that.
That's right,
because they get to draw from a much, much bigger knowledge base and practical experience of what works and what doesn't work that you've built just by the experience of helping so many people in so many different areas.
Now, here's what we've experienced through that process recently, right? I go back to my shed selling days. I had a guy come in one day and he said, sniffing around the building, he said, they use formaldehyde in this building? I was like, I don't know. I don't know if they use formaldehyde in the products at all. I gotta be honest with you. That's a question I never thought I would get, right? Seemed very, yeah. So anyway, but I researched it, because I did my due diligence, because I wanted to know, and I was like, I hope I don't get caught off guard by that anymore. And it turns out that the formaldehyde that's used in it is so little that the government doesn't even require them to list it as being used. But for him, he was like, I can smell it, so I won't buy it, as long as it's got formaldehyde, whatever. Then the problem was, whenever I was selling, I became such a product specialist that I couldn't wait to tell everybody everything that I knew about the product, right? So when they came in, they would ask a question that I would never give them an answer to. Like, they might ask a question that's very, very generic, like, well, how are they constructed? Is this one considered a good building, or is that one a good building? What's the difference in them? I'm not a construction expert, so I don't really know. Like, am I paying way more for that? Is this one way better? So then all of a sudden I would launch into all of this knowledge that I had, right? this is built 16-inch on center, which is built like a house, and all that basically means is this. And if you're going to finish it out, you put some insulation in there. You can get that R13, with 16s, and it's going to be a little cheaper than you can R19 or whatever on the 24-inch on centers. And I've got double top plates. And by the way, this thing does not have formaldehyde in it. And they're just like, okay. And we've done this in marketing because what we've wanted to do is we've wanted to say, here's this comprehensive picture of what we offer. We do all these things. And what you're going to find is the leg bone's connected to the knee bone, right? If you use service A, it's a matter of time for you're going to need service B. And it's a matter of time for you're going to need service C. So let us just quote you on all of the things we do because you're going to need them. And what we've done is we've failed to lead the horse to water, right? And let them drink on their own. Blow them away with service A so that it creates a problem and a need for service B and service C. And this is one of the best examples I can give you of what we've learned, I feel like, in the last 6 months, is instead of trying to go all in and tell everybody everything and prove that we are who we are, we've almost kind of scaled back a little bit, David, and said, like, well, let's help you in what you need help with, and let's blow your mind to the point to where you need another solution of something that we offer. Again, sounds like a marketing pitch here, but it's a real.
Well, let me go back to my running Robel and being in the software industry. So by the time I was 24 or 25, I was probably giving 80% of the trade show demonstrations, especially of our integrated software development environment. So someone would come to the booth and I would ask them questions for probably 5 minutes. What programming language do you use? How many people? What's the approval process for new versions? Like, your listeners it doesn't necessarily relate because they're not in the software business, but I asked these very specific questions, and we had this horizontal tool that had hundreds of features. And then I'd step up to the terminal, because we didn't have computers, we had terminals back then, and I would show them maybe 5% of the product. But I would show them the exact 5% that exactly matched their environment. And they felt seen, they felt heard, and they felt that they had a solution that was very uniquely tailored just for them. And that's, I get back to early in the conversation, talk about pain point, and pain pill. It's that digging down to find out that 1, 2, 3, 4 things that are the most important to them, and then just showing that part of the product line that absolutely satisfies that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's probably still only 5% of your product line or feature set. Right. But it's the piece that really matters to them. Right.
And really listening to them and their questions that they're asking, like, those are the things that they're seeking to solve anyway. Like, just like with my formaldehyde experience, I told 30 customers after that we didn't have formaldehyde, and like 30 customers probably walking out of there going, what the heck is he talking about? I didn't even need to know or didn't even care about formaldehyde.
Or even you mentioned like a prospect comes in and says, what's the difference between, shed A and shed B? I'd first be tempted, like, why are you asking the question? Or what's important to you? Like, is it price? Is it construction quality? Like, what is really important to you in the shed that you want to get? And then I'll be better able to tell you, like, what the differences are between some of the sheds. But let me understand better your point of view.
That's right.
Because oftentimes the best way to give the answer is to actually ask the question first until you, I'm not trying to avoid your question, but I feel like I give you a better answer if I understood better, why you want the shed and what you're going to do with it and where it's going to be in the yard. And if you could tell me a bit more about that, I'll be much better able to answer your other questions.
We like to use a term called conditional logic. Based off of your answer, it conditions the logical response that I should have to take you down the path based off of your question. So, like, I could be giving you information, formaldehyde as an example, that's not necessary or needed or even like part of the conversation. But because of my previous experience, oh no, I didn't get the sale because of this. I want to make sure they know, but they're not asking that question. And we've really started to fine tune different processes to just be better, to be sharper about those things. And coaching has helped me with that. Seeking
Nice.
coaching, and yeah, it's because you identify problems that you don't see. One of my favorite books, it's over here. Well, I say it's over here. May have to edit this out because I'm struggling right now to never split the difference. And one of the things that the author talks about in that was he created a program called the Black Swan Group. And the purpose of the Black Swan Group is to imagine looking out into a lake, and there's 100 swans. And as those 100 swans look at each other, they see the same things, right? But there's one black swan in the middle of the 100 white swans. Well, guess what? All the attention gets focused on the black swan. But as the black
Thanks.
swan looks out, it just sees other swans and figures it's just like them. So everyone can see the obvious thing. So, for instance, if you have a communication issue, everyone can see it sometimes, but you. If you have
Right.
if you have a rudeness issue, everyone else sees and experiences it except for you. And you know what? If you have a rudeness experience, someone telling you you're rude doesn't go over very well, right? Because
Yeah,
you're
right.
probably gonna you're probably gonna be rude in your response. But these are stepping stones to growth, no matter what it is. If
Yes.
it's time, attention, lack of customer service, maybe it's your product. I've had guys contact me and say, like with our advertising, half our products sold this year was because we advertised on your program. I've had other guys who say, I never got a call from anybody ever. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I break this process down? Right?
Right.
Like, is it your sales pitch? Is it your product? Is it there's a lot of things I can't control. I can get in front of the same people who had success over here in this area, but I can't make people buy anything over here because maybe they have your position in the industry is kind of maybe not one that there's like maybe it's not too good, like let's just take the gloves
Right.
off.
And so you have a branding problem that you need to go solve first, which is to
Yeah,
change your perception out in the community. Yeah, that entrepreneur, that's part of why I'm a coach, is because it is virtually impossible to see the problems in front of us. I call it your nose is pressed so hard into the bark of the tree that it feels very uncomfortable, but you don't even know what tree you're pressing your nose into, let alone what forest you might be standing in. And maybe I could help you take a step or two back and see a
well,
little bit more.
I think it's great. Somehow we've managed to get 60 minutes in here instead of 45, but that's because you're a great conversationalist. And I want to make sure people know again, you can go to our newsletter, you can click on the website, you can find out more about Coach David. He's offering up a free hour for anybody who contacts him for a discovery call to see if maybe more business exists between the two of you. Maybe it doesn't, but a conversation never hurt anybody.
Well, and I
And
promise you will have one idea to accelerate your business in the next 90 days after an hour with me. Promise.
excellent. Excellent. Any final thoughts that you want to give before we end here today, David? I've enjoyed this conversation thoroughly. I
Sure,
can
I,
get
I got
tons and
one. I
tons of
got one
calls.
final. I got one final thought. Have fun. If you're not having fun running your business, like, why bother? If you're
True
not
story.
bouncing out of bed in the morning, like looking forward to going to your business and looking after your customers, like something needs to change. So
Absolutely.
that's really my final thought, because I think that's what running a business. Businesses are really darn hard, and so make sure you're having fun while you're building them.
Great advice. Couldn't have asked for anything better. Thank you so much for being on the show today, David. I hope people take advantage of your 1 hour offer there, and I certainly encourage them to check out the Shed Geek podcast, newsletter, and you guys make sure you go and join like the private group Shed Sales Professionals. We've got a lot of cool conversations and things like that happening on there. If you ever have any questions for us, feel free to contact us. If you want to be on the show, feel free to contact us. No story is a story we're not interested in telling. Even if you compete with us, come on, tell us about your product, advertise it. We can't serve everybody anyway, so feel free to give us a call. We want to see others win. We believe in win-win. So thank you, David, so much for being on the show.
Thanks again, Shed Pro, for being the Shed Geeks studio sponsor for 2025. If you need any more information about Shed Pro or about Shed Geek, just reach out. You can reach us by email at info@shedgeek.com or just go to our website, www.shedgeek.com, and submit a form with your information, and we'll be in contact right away. Thank you again for listening, as always, to today's episode of the Shed Geek Podcast. Thank you and have a blessed day.